In a zombie apocalypse, having a gun would be very essential. Not only does it help you eliminate zombies in much more efficient ways, but it also helps you keep your distance with them. But what if you don't have any ammo? What if you don't have any guns at all? Can you defeat dozens of enemies by only using your hands? Well, that's what I wanted to find out. So today, I'm gonna try to beat The Last of Us without using any guns at all. Now before we go into this challenge, I want to set a few ground rules first. Rule number 1, no guns or equipment. This means I can't use any kind of lethal throwable like a Molotov cocktail, and I can't use any guns at all. Now, technically the bow isn't a gun, but I won't be allowing it this challenge. Rule number 2, non-lethals are okay to be used. This means I can use bricks and bottles to stun my enemies, but I can also use smoke bombs to stun my enemies as well. And finally, rule number 3, friendly fire is allowed. This means I can use other NPCs to kill other NPCs, since technically I'm not the one killing them. Now before we get into this challenge, I'm gonna have to do something that will affect the rest of my playthrough, and that is the difficulty. And since I'm a madman, I chose the hardest difficulty, grounded, meaning enemies are super aggressive, I die in like 2 to 3 hits, and supplies are super limited. It's the definition of insanity. Now, to make my life ever so slightly easier, I did go into New Game Plus just so I can keep most of my stat upgrades. If you've played Grounded before, you probably understand why I did this. Now, our journey begins with a father celebrating his birthday with his daughter. His daughter very kindly got him a watch for his birthday, and as a reward, the father let his daughter stay up late and they watched TV together. She later fell asleep on the couch, but being the good papa that he is, he scooped her up and put her to bed. But later that night, she was woken up by her Uncle Tommy calling her and asking if she could go get her father. I went off to look for him in his room, but for some reason my papa wasn't there. We celebrated the 4th of July, and that's when I decided to go downstairs where I finally found my papa, but for some reason he was panicking. And also he was loading a gun for some reason, which I don't understand why he needs that. He really just... Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh God, our neighbor Jimmy turned into a booty muncher! He broke through the glass and tried to eat our booties, but since I'm a minor, Papa had to fill his guts with 357 Magnum and killed him. We then meet up with Uncle Tommy, who was waiting for us outside so he can pick us up and get us the hell out of the city. We watched the house burn to the ground on the way, and then we ditched some losers who probably needed our help and are very likely dead now because we didn't help them. But then karma hit us and now we're stuck in a traffic jam where... Hey, what's that guy doing? Whoa, hey, what's up? No, oh God! Oh God! Oh no! Oh dear God, they're ripping his cheeks off! Oh God, they're biting it clean off! Oh God! We definitely didn't want our cheeks getting ripped off our rear, so we decided to drive the hell out of there as quick as possible. But apparently nobody taught Tommy to look both ways before crossing the roads, because right here we get absolutely decked by another car. But it's all good because Joel breaks out of the car like a baby chick does out of an egg, and then Tommy decides to play some real life Minecraft, baby.
I am Steve.
You know, guys, the outbreak isn't even that bad. I mean, we need to get to that bridge over there in the distance, and it's fine. I mean, we're going great. It's not like... I kind of want to go this way now, yeah. But the apocalypse isn't even that bad. I mean, yeah, there's people mourning the deaths of their loved ones, and there's people on fire. Dear God. But it's fine, guys. It's all good. It's fine. Look, there's a fire truck right there. It's all good. We tried to check out the Fantastic Four premiere, but changed our mind and take a shortcut through the alley. But then it's when I heard it. Oh God, Tommy, there's a booty muncher right there. You know, I kind of expected Tommy to go first because, you know, he was the one with the gun. Kind of hard to do this while holding my daughter, you know. Oh, you son of a bitch. We book it the hell out of there, but unfortunately me and Tommy get separated, so now we're on our own. But I all of a sudden hear something. What's that noise?
Give me your cheeks.
Oh God, it was my cheeks. Luckily we get just in time for a sick soldier to save us. And when I mean that he's sick, I mean that he's crazy. Anyway, Sarah dies of death and we skip 20 years into the future because why not? And as it turns out, Robert decided to steal my guns and also beat up my girl. Obviously we weren't gonna let that slide, so we went out and looked for him. And you know something, guys? Living in a quarantine zone isn't even that bad. I mean, check out these kind doctors making sure these people's shots are up to date. And I'm also making a bunch of friends. Alright, oh, kill yourself. Big kablow happens that makes us go underground to collect our gear, which I can't use. But later on our journey, we come across this poor soul that's stuck under the hundreds of kilograms of rubble. Now, in a normal playthrough, you're supposed to pull out your gun and put this guy out of his misery. But I kinda can't do that, so sorry buddy, gonna leave you there to suffer. Bye-bye! And here is where we come across our first enemies. And also is where I unlock the chokeout. The chokeout was super useful, not only to take out enemies stealthily, but also to not confront them head on. Which confronting enemies head on and grounded is a certified death sentence. Anyways, after giving these two booty munchers the Mike Tyson special, I had my victory dance on top of their corpses, and then we went out and we looked at these guys kill each other like if it was ancient Rome. And after being very satisfied, we found out about Robert's whereabouts, and then we come across our first human enemies. And human enemies are much harder to deal with than infected because they have guns, meaning they can shoot me from afar, and since I have to get up close and personal with my enemies to beat the hell out of them, well, yeah, you can see how this was a problem. After watching the most epic gunfight in human history, oh damn! I got the upper hand on the guys, and after that they were cake. A few left and right hooks later, we finally got the key to the warehouse, and here's where I unlock the bricks and bottles, which were super useful throughout this playthrough, not only to distract my enemies when stealthing around, I can also use them as melee weapons and as throwables to stun my enemies. A few knuckle sandwiches servings later, we finally got to Robert. But as it turns out, the bastard sold our guns. Honestly, I couldn't give less of a crap. I can't use the guns anyways. But Tess gave me that look, so I had no other option than to break Robert's nose and also rotate his arm at a 72-degree angle. Then Tess puts him down, but then's when we meet Marlene, who says she will give us back our guns if we smuggle something out of the city first.
We can sneak by them, even though I know that's not your style.
We can work something out, okay?
What are you talking about? A few jabs later, we finally meet up with Ellie, aka what we're smuggling out of the city. We try to sneak out of the city all stealth-wise, but we get caught 10 seconds later. And it seems like our plan is all foiled. Oh damn, look at Ellie go, she's about to take that guard's gun and save us all! Never mind. Luckily that distracted them long enough, but then's when we find out that Ellie is actually infected. She then tries to explain how she's actually immune to the virus and can actually be a possible cure for mankind. But we don't have time to discuss it, so we run the hell out of there.
Alright, Ellie. When I give you the signal, we...
We finally made it out through the sewer systems, so now all we had to do is take Ellie and take her to the Capitol building. While roaming around, we came across a bunch of dead bodies, which I made sure to pay my respects to. But then karma hit me, and I got jumped by Toad's ugly cousin. But then, God decided to give me a revolver, which I can't use. The room full of infected was pretty scary, but there's nothing a brick to the head can't handle. And then is when we get to the subway station, which was very scary and very tricky, but thankfully there were a bunch of bricks that I could use for my advantage. Now this was pretty crazy. Because here, I stun an infected with a bottle so I can grab it and feed it to a clicker, because you can do that, but for some reason, the clicker grabs me instead of the infected, but then, Ellie the absolute goat comes in last seconds and shifts the clicker in the back. This is why Ellie is the actual goat, and then I left her and she died and I had to restart. A few heads turned mush by a brick later, we finally get the hell out of there and we finally make it to the museum.
You got something on your shoe. Gross.
And here's where I come across my biggest enemies. Politicians.
I was in the mall when Shit! Sorry, that was me.
Yeah, Ellie gets it! We tried to take a quick shortcut, but ended up getting separated. Thankfully, we ended up meeting up 20 seconds later. This part was very scary and tricky, but thankfully with the power of friendship, anything is possible. We finally leave the museum once and for all, but unfortunately, by the time that we got to the Capitol building, the fireflies have already been hit with bug spray. Then come to find out, Tess is actually bitten, and now she wants us to leave her here and die alone. Get the hell out of here while I sacrifice myself. Okay. This part was super difficult because it was very hard to stealth around in, but eventually I got through with enough determination. We then run down to the subway station to try to get away from Fedra, but here's where we come across a very scary moment. You see, this guy, he was playing it smart. He was keeping his distance with me, and I couldn't get near him or else I get shot down to pieces. But then, the absolute goat Ellie came in and decked the guy in the head with a brick, giving me the chance to slime the ever-leaving beans out of him. We took care of the final guy, and after that, we were finally home free. Now our plan was to find good old Billy Boy so he can get us a brand new spanking car so we can take Ellie to the Fireflies. And here's where we finally get to Bill's town, where I find the upgraded melee weapon. I tested out a bit, Ellie very carefully sneaks past some non-existing enemies, and then I test out my melee weapon a bit more. But unfortunately, here's where I sadly fail the challenge. You see, Joel gets caught up on one of Bill's traps, and now we have to defend Ellie with our revolver while she tries to free us. And there's no way around it, so I'm forced to use a gun. Are you kidding me? I came all this way. My knuckles went through absolute hell just so I can fail here? Not even halfway through the game? I was devastated, but I wasn't gonna let that stop me. Bill finally saves us for what it's worth, so we finally book it the hell out of there to his little safety cubby. He then explained to us that the only way he can get us a car is by getting the battery of a military truck that crashed a few months ago. So we pack our stuff and head on over to that truck. And you know, Bill was actually super useful at killing enemies. I mean, just look at him go. He's completely wrecking his clicker and hey Bill! He then was kind enough to give me a shotgun, which I can't use, and he also was kind enough to give me a homemade grenade, which I also can't use. The graveyard was very scary to go through, but after sneaking here and there, we finally got through it. The backyards was pretty tricky and scary, but eventually we finally get to the school. And there it was, the military truck. Now we had to get to it. This part was very tricky because there weren't any throwables I could use, but after improvising, we eventually got through it. We finally got into the school, but as it turns out, somebody got to the battery before we did. So now we were stranded in a school full of infected, so we got out of there. This section wasn't actually that bad. I just snuck around most of the time and used bricks and bottles when I had the chance. Then we snuck past some enemies and everything was great. Until the real problem began. Because here is where we come across our first bloater. And this guy made me lose my mind. Why? Well, let me explain. The bloater is an absolute unit. He has a bunch of health to go through, can tank any hit you throw at him, has superhuman strength, slightly above average speed, and a bunch of friends to help him out. Everything I don't have. So, how did I beat him? Well, I let the big guy charge at me, I would move 1 inch last second, he would hit a wall and get stunned, and I go crazy on him. This isn't very hard to pull off, but it's just very hard to keep consistent, because he loves to send his minions after you, and throw piss balls at you, and I also can't get too close or else he will touch me very inappropriately. So the strat was, I let him charge at me, he would hit a wall, get stunned, I'd hit him a few times, and repeat. But this was going to be very hard, because even with an upgraded melee weapon, it takes over 80 hits to take down a bloater. So what I'd do is take care of the small infected and mainly focus on the big guy. Bill was actually surprisingly useful at distracting the small infected. In this clip, he actually pushed his one runner into the bloater charge and he died. So funny. So after many punches and many deaths, I was finally starting to get the upper hand on the big guy. When I was like 70 hits in, I got stuck on something while he was charging on me. He grabbed me, killed me, and now I had to restart from zero, and I was tweaking the hell out.
Man, I'm gonna break my monitor, I swear.
But I was not going to give up. I was gonna be here for the next 100 years if I had to be, until this thing was dead. So after a lot of hitting, a lot of dodging, and a lot of sweating my ass off, trying not to die, so I didn't have to restart from zero all over again, I finally had landed the final blows to kill the bloater. I did it. I killed the bloater with my bare hands. David had beaten Goliath. I had my very well earned and deserved dance on top of its corpse, and I was so happy and full of adrenaline that I completely destroyed the last 3 infected. We finally get out of that stupid school, and I decide to give the Rocky treatment to the last 3 infected. We finally leave that hellhole, and that's when we come across Bill's buddy, Frank, who's, you know, hanging around. But then come to find out, Frank is actually the one who took the battery off the military truck. So we borrow his pickup truck and we try to get it down the hill. But unfortunately that made a lot of noise, so now we have to deal with a bunch of infected. But thankfully, I have my fist to help me out, and also bricks and bottles. So yeah, eat it, sucker! A few deaths here, and another few deaths over there, and a few funny glitches over here. We finally got the truck over the hill. But that made a lot of noise, so now we gotta get on that truck and get the hell out of there. Me and Bill say our farewells together, and then's when me and Ellie decide to drive off and go to Pittsburgh. Now, nothing really crazy happened in this section of the game, so I'll just speedrun through most of it. Ellie decides to look at some questionable literature, and then we get jumped by a bunch of hunters that want our car and also us. One of the hunters punches my head through glass and tries to stab me with it, but all I could do is smile. As out of my back pocket, I pulled out my emergency Uno reverse card. Checkmate, baby. The hunters start shooting at us, but thankfully for me, that is nothing a few punches and kicks can't solve. Ellie tells me some hilarious jokes.
I walked into my sister's room and tripped on a bra. It was a booby trap.
I just stealthed through most of the library, and the apartment, yeah, that was about the same, yeah. The apartment basement was pretty scary, but I eventually got through it after just running through everything. Ellie says my 2-round booty cheeks last second, and after that, I finally trust her with a gun, and she was actually pretty darn good with it. I camped it out at the office for most of this section, and after that whole fiasco, I finally gave Ellie her own gun. And then, we met Henry and Sam, who suggested we should all stick together. We agreed, but then he decided to abandon me 20 minutes later. I'm gonna skip the whole sewer section because it was mostly the same as always. A bunch of punching and kicking.
Like you cut, G.
Now what I will talk about is the sniper section, because this part of the game is technically, possibly possible, be able to be beaten with just your allies killing all the enemies. But this is only possible in like difficulties like light and very light, but since I'm playing on grounded, my allies have absolute stormtrooper aim and can hit anything if their life depended on it. Now, I wouldn't have counted this as a gun use since you technically can't beat it without you killing anyone, but you still need to shoot this one guy, so, yeah, that's another gun use. After that, me and Henry were really starting to get along together. We were bonding so well that he actually considered giving me and Ellie the N-word pass. I didn't know how to feel about that. Thanks, I guess. But he didn't have time to consider it because Sam the next morning turned into a booty muncher, and Henry had no other option than to put him down like a rabid dog. He then put himself down like a rabid dog. And now, I'm going to reunite with my little brother Tommy. I explained to Tommy how Ellie is immune and how she's a cure for mankind, and how I want him to take him to the Fireflies because he used to be one. He was actually really mad and upset with me, because not only did I want him to finish my job, but I also wanted some gear so I could go home. You see, when you say it like that, you make me look like the selfish one. But we didn't have time to discuss it because the base got raided. And actually, it was pretty fun. Mostly because Tommy and his buddies did most of the work for me while I healed in the back. A few killing streaks later, we finally got to Ellie and saved her. But she overheard the fact that I was giving her up for adoption, so she took one of Tommy's horses and were out off into the sunset. So, we took some horses and went off to look for her. On our way, we came across some ruffians that we made quick work of. And then I finally meet up with Ellie and we have a quick argument about how she is not my daughter and how I am not her dad. Now I want you to take a quick look at this because this is actually crazy. Because Tommy folded this guy. I mean, look at this. He folded him like an envelope. You know, I actually felt kind of bad giving the little rascal for adoption. I mean, after everything we've been through. So I decided to have a change of heart and take her to the Fireflies myself. Besides, what home waited me back in that quarantine zone? Yuck. So, me and Tommy said our farewells, and I rode off with Ellie to the good old Eastern University of Colorado. I found a flamethrower that I can't use, and the dorms were pretty scary, but I just snacked past everyone. Eventually, we finally made it to the university, but just to find out that the Fireflies had moved out and now are all the way from Colorado to Salt Lake City. But then, we got ambushed. Again. I muscled my way out of that situation, but then I got ambushed. Again. I struggled a bit with the guy on top of me, but eventually I was able to get him off. Unfortunately, we did fall off the second story, but thankfully Joel landed on a nice soft piece of rebar instead of the spine-shattering grass right next to him. And unfortunately, I was forced to use a gun to kill these two guys right here. Now, I do kill 3 people with a gun, but I'm only gonna count it as 1 gun usage, alright? Cut me some damn slack, alright? We finally get away from those crazy people, but unfortunately Joel passes out, and now we skip over to the winter section.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Now this is something I want to talk about. The deer hunt. Does this part count as a gun use? Now I did say earlier that the bow would not be allowed in this challenge. But the bow is still not a gun. And this is not an enemy. So does this count as a gun use? Honestly, I don't even know. But personally, I will not count this as a gun use. Is it cheating? Probably. Do I care? No. But if you think I cheated, make sure to leave a comment down below so I make sure to ignore it. After catching up to my lunch, I came across these 2 mofos who were actually surprisingly friendly. They suggested that we should trade for some of the deer that I just caught, and I said I would accept the trade if they gave me some medicine in return.
Medicine, girl, you should have asked for better clothes.
Since I didn't pay for same day delivery, I had to wait a bit for the medicine to arrive. But then is when we got jumped by infected. And I'm telling you, this part of the game made me tweak out. You see, when shanking enemies, Ellie doesn't actually stun them, unlike Joel's hammers that he calls fists. And because of this, the infected just kept on walking off everything I throw at them. So to prevent getting my ass handed to me, I would use David. I let an infected run up and grab him, and while they were distracted, I would run up and shank him right in the back, killing them. But even then, this whole section was impossible because this one part alone took me over 1 hour to beat. But thankfully, after all that hell, I finally made it through. Oh, and by the way, this is one clicker that gets to David's defense, and if you shank him just at the right time, he will actually die instantly. So, yeah, look at that. Ellie's big bag causes a bridge to fall over, and now we're separated from David. And after sneaking past some very scary clickers here and there, eventually, I finally made it back to David. And everything was going great. But then, Roro Raggy. Because here's where we come across the Winter Bloater. And I know what a lot of you are wondering. Is this guy just as difficult or more difficult than the Gym Bloater? Well, actually, this guy was easier than the Gym Bloater. A lot of people might think that this bloater is a lot harder to beat than the gym bloater because back at the gym, I had a lot more room to run around with and make the bloater charge at me. So you would think that in this small room, it'd be really hard to make the bloater charge at me. But that, my friends, is the old meta. We got a new meta now. You see, what I do is that I climb down this ledge here, and then when the bloater came after me, I'd shank him a few times, then I'd climb back up, and when the bloater came after me, I would shank him a few times, and then just repeat that like 200 times. I did die here and there because I got cocky, but eventually, after getting the hang of things, this guy was absolute cake. So yeah, that's all I did for 8 minutes straight. I just shanked the guy until finally, with the last stab, he hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. And that was the last bloater I ever had to deal with. And to think I'm playing on grounded mode this whole playthrough.
You're not tough, bro.
And after all that chaos, me and David went back to check on our buck. You know, me and David were getting along really well. But then, David decides to tell me a story on how this winter has been specially cruel with him. He then explains to me how he had sent a bunch of his men to go to the nearby town to look for supplies, but they were all killed by a big, strong, hunky man who killed them with his bare hands in cold blood. And then he said how it was a funny coincidence that he was traveling with a little girl. Yeah, coincidence. Yeah, let's go with that. Thankfully, the other guy came in with the medicine, so I took it and booked it the hell out of there. But it did not take long for David to put 2 and 2 together. I was giving Joel his medicine when, as it turns out, Javen had sent out men to come look for me. So, I got on my horse and tried to ride away as far as possible. Unfortunately, some guy caught me, but thankfully, Ellie knew that we were doing a no guns challenge. I ran away as fast as possible so I can get all of these nincompoops as far away as possible from Joel. All of a sudden, this guy got on my horse like he's the main character, and then my horse got 360 no-scoped. R.I.P. Hans, you will be missed. But there was no time to grieve, so I booked it the hell out of there. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. How the hell was I able to not only kill, but also sneak past all of these enemies? And not only that, but also doing it with this dumb, dull, average-sized pocket knife. So, how did I do all this? Well, it was actually very easy. All I did was put my Crocs into sports mode, and then I run like hell, dodging bullets, avoiding enemies, hiding any chance I get, and I just sprint past literally everything. And eventually I actually made it to the end. But then's when David caught up to me and strangled me until I passed out. And then I woke up in a cage all confused, and as I watched as some guy started to cut up a body. Oh god, what are these people? Then's when David came in with some food and started talking about how we don't have to be enemies and we can just be friends. I tried grabbing the keys as quick as possible, but then David caught me and started slamming me against the cage. He then said that for breaking his finger, he was going to chop me up into little pieces, put me in a stew, and eat me for dinner. It seemed like I was completely cooked. But then, my soul went back into Joel's body. And finally, we were playing as the man himself, and I was about to show these dumb goons what is what.
Nope.
Where is she? Nothing you gotta tell me.
Joel, no!
It's all right, Ellie. I've got a med pack left. Right, where were we?
Eventually I got ambushed again, and my innards were about to become outsides, but thankfully I hit this guy where no man could walk off.
Up and I kicked the guy in the mound right in the balls, and the ball crunch was so satisfying.
I then overpowered the other guy, and after that these two were absolutely nothing. I brought them in to question them about where Ellie was, but these two were completely silent. I mean, not a word came out of their mouths. That wasn't until I smacked one of them in the knee with my gun, and after that they were spilling all of the beans. I mean, all of them. They even told me David's security number, and I didn't even need that. We switch back to Ellie, which is about to get chopped up for David's stew, but as a last-ditch effort, I tell David I'm gonna do a lot of things to him if he just lets me go. He thankfully bought into the bait, and that gave me just enough time to book it the actual hell out of there. Now all I had to do was escape from the town, but I just used the same strat as before, put on my Crocs into sports mode and run like hell. But then I got ambushed by David, and he demanded I gave him what I promised him. Like, bro, I was kidding. You thought I was serious? Yeah, this guy gotta die. So, me and David got ready to start fighting. After sneaking here and there and stabbing him multiple times, we finally knocked him out, but he also knocked us out, so, you know, that's a problem. But then we switched back to Joel, and it's back to haymakers. After a lot of sneaking around and stealth killing here, we finally got to the last few enemies, and after cracking their skulls open, we finally made it to the burning building Ellie was in. Then we switched back to Ellie, and now it was time to finish off David, but unfortunately he got back up, started beating us, and then got on top of us. And to be honest with y'all, I kinda don't wanna know he was about to do it with us, but thankfully Ellie was able to grab the machete just in time to give David an unlicensed plastic surgery. And then we skipped to spring. We finally made it to Salt Lake City, and now all we had to do was find the hospital. And after a bit of walking and looking, guess what we found? Yeah, there it was. The hospital. Our journey was nearing its end. Not too long now. For some reason, Ellie was acting all weird and traumatized, like if someone tried to diddle her. Like, we pet some weird looking dogs, and then we watched a bunch of them in herds. As I pondered, how does one throw away a trash can? But unfortunately, here's where we come across yet another forced gun use. You see, we boost Ellie so she can get over and unlock a door from the inside, but then she gets jumped by a clicker, and we have to kill the clicker to save her. And there's no other way around this, so I was forced to kill the clicker. Well, that's another forced gun use.
Ellie, I'm gonna kill you!
After exploring and solving puzzles, we came across this river that had a very strong current, so we tried to jump over it. But then, Joel fell into a bus that was quickly filling with water, so Ellie came down to try to save us. But unfortunately, she fell into the river herself, so we squeezed on out of there to try to save her, get her to the surface, and I was able to get us both into the surface just in time. Or so I thought. Because Ellie was not breathing. I immediately started performing CPR, but then a firefly came in and thought I was being another kid diddler, so he knocked me out. I woke up in the hospital all confused, and then's when I saw Marlene, the queen of the fireflies. I asked if they could take me to Ellie, but they refused every time, saying that she was getting ready for surgery. Because as it turns out, the only way to make a cure out of Ellie is by squeezing all of the blood out of her and pretty much her ending up like an empty tub of toothpaste. This would obviously kill her, and I wasn't going to let that happen. But Marlene had made up her mind, and she told me how what she's been through is worse than what I've been through. Excuse me? Did you punch a bloater to death? Do you have any idea what my knuckles have been through? But she wasn't taking any of the disrespect, so she told her goon to walk me out of this place. And you know, I was being cooperative. I was listening to everything he said, following all of his orders, until...
I said move.
Oh, you wanna die?
I said keep walking.
After that, he spilled the beans immediately where Ellie was, so I grabbed my stuff and got ready for the fight of my life and the fight for Ellie's life. And after that intense battle and many deaths, I had finally made it to the operation room. And there she was, Ellie. The doctor tried to get in my way so I couldn't get to Ellie, but he has no idea what I'm capable of. So I took his scalpel and stabbed him in the neck. Loser! And there also couldn't be any witnesses, so yeah, sorry. I grabbed Ellie off of the operating table and got out of there as quick as possible. I did not look back. I only looked forward. Obviously, I'm not gonna look back to look at the soldiers. What do you think? I ran and I ran until I finally made it to the elevator. I pressed the button. The door shut. And I did it. I had done it. I beat the game without using guns. I finally did it. As I was leaving the elevator, Marlene ambushed me.
For the last time, I swear.
She then explains to me how Ellie would have wanted to become an empty tub of toothpaste to save the world. And after that conversation, she thought she had convinced me. She thought I was gonna do the right thing. But what she didn't know is that I made my mind up months ago. So, I ended this journey the same way it begun. So, can you beat The Last of Us without using any guns? Hell no! You guys probably knew that when you clicked on this video, come on now. But, exactly when was I forced to use guns? Well, if we don't count the deer hunt, I was only forced to use guns 4 times throughout the entire game, which were Bill's traps, the sniper section, when Joel gets impaled, and the final clicker you kill. And I know what a lot of you are gonna say, oh yeah, you can beat The Last of Us without using guns except for the parts where you can't. I know, okay, I know. But it's still pretty crazy that throughout the entire game, I was only forced to use guns 4 times. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. And hit the notification bell so you get reminded every time I make a video every 10 millennia. I do actually hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had to edit this whole video on my iPhone 12, so this took a long time to edit. I want to give a quick shout out to both Dante Ravioli and Epic Cakes Gaming, as they make similar challenge videos like this. So yeah, definitely go check out their videos, they're super cool. And that's gonna be it for today, people. I'll see you all next time.